Hey, Smash here.
Hello, Zuko here.
Welcome to my channel. Video games are awesome.
You're goddamn right.
There's nothing I love better than sitting down after a long day and just chilling out with some good game time. But I also love games for more than just a pastime. I think they are the most engaging and exciting art form possible right now. Games do something that no other form of media does. It transports us into new worlds, not just as observers, but as participants. We're not looking on and observing actions on a screen or on the page of a book or a comic. We are directly influencing and moving the story forward ourselves. And this, for me, leads to a greater level of immersion and sense of accomplishment when I do finish a solid game. I've been playing games since I was a child with my PS1, running around as a cool 90s purple dragon named Spyro, collecting gems, saving dragons from their crystals, and flaming some orcs. And ever since I've been an avid fan of gaming. But when I was a child, I was just having simple fun. I knew when a game was good or bad, but I didn't bother thinking much about why they were good or bad, or how they affected me personally. As I've grown older though, I have been able to put these feelings into words. But I talk a lot. And if I'm passionate about something, as I am with games, I can go on for a while, probably to the annoyance of friends and family. So I've decided to make this channel. I'm going to use this channel as an outlet, a way for me to express my feelings about games in a way which is fully my own, but also in a way that will allow me to refine my thoughts, so I'm not just blabbering on and missing points and forgetting things. I've had plenty of conversations with friends about games, but often I trip over my own words, or I don't know how to express my thoughts in the moment. I'm hoping that this will be a good way to express all of my feelings and thoughts about a certain game in a way that makes sense and is entertaining. Of course, everything here is my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours on any of my videos. I keep an open mind, and I'm willing to consider a different opinion than mine. Just keep it civil, of course. Speaking of opinions, it might be good to start off this channel by giving anyone watching an idea of my preferred gaming tastes. This will also be a nice archive for me to later explore to see how much this list may or may not change over the years. So, with that said, I'm going to present to you my current top 10 games of all time, as of when I'm recording this, which is in February of 2021.
Number 10.
Some of my favorite gaming memories include my friends, either through playing cooperative games together or competitive games trying to get those W's. For me, these feelings are best experienced in a couch co-op setting with your buds right next to you. No game has given me nearly as much content and playtime with my buds than Dokapon Kingdom, developed by Sting and published by Atlas. You might know them from the Persona series, on the PS2 and the Nintendo Wii. This is probably the most niche game on this list. Dokapon Kingdom is a mixture of Mario Party and a classic Japanese RPG into one. I've put so many hours into this game that I had to include it on this list. The game has all the tellings of a JRPG. You select a starting class of either a warrior, wizard, or thief, which you can then level up and allocate stats for as you fight monsters in a turn-based battle system. You gain new spells, weapons, armor, shields, items, and abilities, and that's all just the tip of the iceberg with this game. All of this is happening as you are traversing a Mario Party style board, encountering random events, item box roulettes, item shops, and more. The game has so much depth under the seemingly simple surface as you try to figure out your most optimal build to be able to defeat monsters, retake overrun towns, and complete quests for the King of Dokapon, who is an amazing character and very well written, might I add. The game lacks reliable information for all of its mechanics online as well, which sometimes would be a bad thing. But in this case, it actually gives me a similar feeling to when I was younger, and you just had to learn and try different experiments in a game, as the internet wasn't a huge resource for information back then. The big reason why this game makes the number 10 spot on my list is because the AI is wildly inconsistent in how competent it is, and it genuinely feels like the game cheats. And the game really does cheat. It loves cheating. There are too many times when the AI will get exactly what it needs on the exact turn it needs, or when the game feels like it is specifically targeting you and putting you down for long stretches of time before it decides to move on and do the same to someone else. It happens way too often to be a coincidence, much to my frustration. I have had plenty of moments where I am just so frustrated with the game constantly putting you down based on bad rolls, unlucky timing on your turn-based attacks, or getting bad items, getting random events that just give you bad stuff. And it seems to happen constantly, and then it just moves on to another player. It happens way too often to be a coincidence. But, even with that being said, the game still has enough depth and equalizer mechanics, such as the Darkling, that you're almost never truly out of the game until the very end.
Number 9.
This one comes straight from my childhood. I've loved Pokemon ever since I was a kid playing Pokemon Red and Blue on my Game Boy. I've seen this series grow as I've grown with it, and for me, that growth culminated in Pokemon Platinum for the Nintendo DS. This is by far my favorite Pokemon game and generation. It has the right level of difficulty, a great diverse selection of Pokemon mixing old and familiar Pokemon with the new Sinnoh Pokemon, and it has a region which I just adore. Some feel Platinum is a bit slow, and I do agree it's definitely the slowest game in the series, but it works for me. I love walking around this region, exploring the different varied areas, and discovering what it has to offer. The starters Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup are the best 3 starters in the series for me personally, from design-wise, from how usable they are, and the physical special split that they added into the game was an overdue addition to the franchise that added a new dimension to the turn-based combat that improved it in every way. And the sprite work is impeccable. Some of the best sprites, maybe the best sprite work I've seen in any Pokemon game, and that includes the animated ones from 5th generation, Black and White. I still constantly go back to this game more than any other Pokemon game, and for good reason. It takes the number 9 spot though, because at the end of the day, it is still Pokemon. It isn't super radically different from the other games, that it transcends to a different level. And as with Pokemon, the story is a bit, childish. I think it has a more mature story than the previous games, and I like Team Galactic and Cyrus as villains, but it is still a Pokemon game. It doesn't require that much emotional investment, and so for those reasons, it sticks at number 9. But it is the one Pokemon game I'll never get tired of and will always come back to. Now, I just wait in the hopes that Game Freak announces remakes soon. Please. I've been waiting for years.
Number 8.
There are games in my life which I enjoy for their dumb, easy fun. Some I enjoy for their nostalgia. But there is one game which changed how I play games as a whole. Dark Souls on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC for the original version, and Xbox One, PS4, and Switch for the remastered version is that game. Everyone knows about the Souls games at this point. Mostly when people think of the Souls games, they think about their difficulty. And I can't lie, they are difficult. But they're fair.
But I'm not defenseless, you rascal. You will soon.
We've all played games or fought bosses which we can just tell don't feel quite right. Something feels off about it, so that when you die, it just doesn't feel good. It feels like the game cheated you.
Time for you to disappear, Iblis Trigger. How about this? Take this! It's no use! Take this! It's no use! This will end it! No!
This is not the case for the majority of the gameplay in the Souls games. Learning the difference between difficult and unfair was something Dark Souls taught me. And Dark Souls does have unfair moments in it, but the majority of the experience is fair. Up until I played Dark Souls for the first time, I had always played games on normal difficulty and just wanted to get through the story or content. But now I crave challenge. Ever since playing Dark Souls, I prefer to play games on whatever the hard setting is. In this way, I feel it forces me to pay attention more and learn the game's mechanics rather than just coasting through on autopilot. I've gained a greater appreciation for the art of gameplay and a greater understanding of how to utilize a game's mechanics. All of this isn't even mentioning the game itself, which has amazing level design, atmosphere, replayability, music, and even the great times I've had playing cooperatively. Dark Souls doesn't make it higher on the list just because I think its method of delivering story personally isn't as great as I wish it would. I've come to appreciate that detective-like style that you have to employ to uncover the story of the Souls games, but at the end of the day, I do prefer cinematic storytelling in games, which really pushes my emotions to the forefront, which Dark Souls just doesn't deliver. Still, the way that this game has single-handedly changed how I play games in general gives it this deserving spot on my list.
Number 7.
So, I didn't grow up with the 8-bit and 16-bit era of gaming, so my experience playing those games are limited, and with games continually coming out along with my massive backlog, I don't tend to get around to them much. But one I have played for years now, and is very dear to my heart, is Earthbound, otherwise known as Mother 2 on the Super Nintendo. The best way to describe this game is a JRPG set not in a fantasy world, but in a suburban America? Instead of collecting swords, axes, stabs, and magic, you're collecting baseball bats, bottle rockets, and yo-yos. Instead of potions to heal, you're eating hamburgers. Instead of fighting slugs, giant rats, and dragons, you're fighting thieving crows, UFOs, and hippies? The game oozes style from its varied locations, its variety of different music, and even the battle backgrounds, which, while simple, add to the game's wacky style. The game has helped me get through some rough times as well. It's definitely one of those comfort games I can always turn on and smile at. It makes number 7 because of its story. This is going to become a recurring theme for some of these games on this list. It's not presented especially well, and it isn't really the main focus. The point of Earthbound isn't the big bad at the end, it's the world around you with its strange characters and unique style. But the amount that this game has impacted me on an emotional level gives it its deserving spot on this list.
Number 6.
Open world games are a dime a dozen nowadays. From Assassin's Creed to huge Bethesda games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, to the big hitters from Rockstar like GTA and Red Dead Redemption, there's certainly no shortage of huge open world games to sink hundreds of hours into. But the one open world game that I feel has done it better than any other so far is CD Projekt Red's The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I spent an entire summer basically playing only this game, putting 140 plus hours into my first playthrough. Even with all of that playtime, there was still so much I could have done. Quest lines I missed, places to explore, different paths I could have chosen. I certainly could sink another 100, maybe 200 more hours in this game if I wanted to. And the best part is it wouldn't get old. The game is carried by its quest lines. It feels like every NPC is a person with a story. Every side quest has a tale to tell, which is interesting and unique in its own right. From solving a murder mystery, to saving the world and finding your daughter, to figuring out why an entire village was turned into pigs.
Live in this village alone?
Nay, they's home. Flap and Hagel and Bebon. Only Klaus and Igor are gone missing.
Who are Klaus and Igor?
Igor's the fool that eat grass. Klaus, he's the elderman. Every man knows Klaus. But where's they now? I dunno. Took by the piggy magic, must be.
The pigs are magic?
They sure is. See for yourself.
Fine. I'll take a look at the pigs.
Good, lush. You look at them hogs. Oh, I'm off to the well.
Ordinary pig by the looks of it, but my medallion's going wild. Yontek's right, they're enchanted.
There are so many unique quests to do that even when I had pretty much maxed out everything on my character, I still enjoyed just doing the quest for the quest's sake. And he's even mentioning Geralt himself, who has become one of my favorite protagonists in gaming, period.
Current must have carried the sack seaward. I'll swim towards the port. Coming with?
Maybe some other time.
Don't know what you're missing. Water's thick with pungent oils. Guessing it'll do wonders for my complexion.
Find the parcel? Or did you get wet for no reason?
Nothing like a refreshing swim in a filthy canal.
A master monster slayer in the world's largest city, looking for rat shit.
Halt! Stand and duel! I challenge you!
Boots a bit big, maybe? Careful not to trip.
Halt, I say! I am Ronvid of the Small Marsh, bound by a sacred oath.
Oh, that's rough. My sympathies.
This open world game is the first I would suggest to anyone looking to sink a good amount of time into and who want a world to get lost in. Oh, and then I mentioned that there's even a card game within this game. Not like poker or Go Fish. We're talking Gwent, an entirely new card game based in the world of The Witcher itself that has even been spun off into its own game. This game only doesn't quite crack the top 5 for 2 reasons. Number 1, I think the story is hampered a bit if you don't know some of the backstory from the previous games or the books. This was an issue for me personally, one that bothered me so much that I actually stopped my first playthrough early on so I could get caught up on the story. Thankfully though, I do believe the reward that you get for that effort is worth it, as the story in this game really hit me in ways I did not expect, and I needed that context for it to do that. And number 2, combat's very easy. It looks like the game has a lot of depth in terms of combat and skill trees, and it does, but even when playing on the highest difficulty, I still found it too easy and sometimes repetitive. That being said though, it still well deserves its spot at number 6 for being by far my favorite open world game of all time.
Number 5.
I love games with replay value. Being able to replay a game without it feeling samey is something I've enjoyed about the Souls games, as I mentioned earlier. All the different weapons you can use, the different builds you can create, it all makes for an experience that you can replay over and over and over, and it never feels old. But one game that has almost endless replay value, and the one I've probably sunk the most time into, is Sid Meier's Civilization V, developed by Firaxis for PC. There's so much depth and variety to this game to encourage constant replay. No 2 matches are ever the same, with different maps, historical leaders with different abilities to pick from, different win conditions, different game modes, and more. The game never gets old. The ability to change the difficulty from something easy just to relax to, or something gruelingly hard that you have to pay attention to almost every single move made, brings it a great diversity so that you can play it in any mood that you're in. The ability to change the map size, the amount of civilizations in each match, the amount of city-states, even being able to turn on or off barbarians, as well as deciding how fast the game pace is, and if you want to implement max turns or not. The game really allows you to play in any way you'd like, in any mood that you're in. It also helps that I'm a huge history nerd. In fact, I'm currently studying in college to become a history teacher.
I know you won't fail us.
So the fact that this game is rooted in history, and that there is an entire encyclopedia found in the game explaining almost every single unit, building, game mechanic, civilization, and leader within a historical context, I love that. I just love that so much. I've actually, in college, taken a class that used Civilization V as a teaching mechanic. And for that, it was already one of my favorite games of all time. But that just added another dimension and another layer on top of my enjoyment for this game that I never thought I'd add on to it. As I've said with other games on this list though, story is really important to me, and the way in which games convey story is something I really respect. But since Civilization doesn't exactly have a storyline in and of itself, the story is more about you. Each match is its own story based on you and your actions, which is great in its own right. But, like I've said before, I do tend to prefer more cinematic and emotional storytelling. Still, the sheer amount of time I've sucked into this game gives it the deserving spot of number 5.
Number 4.
This might be the most controversial game on my list, but it might also be the one I feel the most strongly about right now. And I'm going to start off this pick with a bold statement. Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2 on PS4 has the single greatest story ever told in gaming, period. Now that statement alone probably made every Last of Us 2 haters' fingers catch fire as they rush to the comments to tell me how wrong I am. But that's fine. We keep it civil here.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
If you don't like the game, that's perfectly fine. You can tell me why in the comments, and I'll be sure to read it. I'm not going to go into too many specifics here though. I'm certain I'll dedicate a video to this game sometime, and I also would rather not accidentally say too many spoilers. But what I can say is the irrefutables. The game is graphically stunning. Undoubtedly the most stunning game I've ever seen from a character and facial model standpoint. Every expression feels so real and has so much detail. You can really feel like it's a live action movie sometimes, which is a true testament to what Naughty Dog has done here. The music is also knocked out of the park. No matter what situation, the music hits perfectly. And not only that, but music and certain songs play a huge thematic role in this game that anytime I hear one of the tracks, I instantly get emotional. In terms of gameplay, it's just a straight upgrade from the original. It looks better, feels better, stealth is way more immersive, even if I was better at it. And some of the kill cams in this game are absolutely brutal. Now story-wise is when things get a bit more contentious. For me, this game does something no other game has in a story. It made me change my mind midway through. It forced me to take a second look, open my mind, and allow the story to be presented to me so that I can create an opinion after. I've heard complaints that it can feel a bit too long, as it does clock in at an average of double the amount of playtime of the original Last of Us, but that is incredibly intentional. It forces you to get over your initial reactions and emotions and see what you might not have seen before. A theme which the characters themselves are dealing just as you are at the same time. And I won't lie, the amount of times I cried during this game probably broke a Guinness World Record for me. The only reason it isn't top 3 is because it is a heavy game. It's not something I can recommend to anyone, and it's not something I personally want to play through over and over and over and over. It's a heavy game with heavy and dark themes, but it's a game I think about constantly, and I won't forget as a gaming experience.
Number 3.
We've already talked about how Dark Souls and the Souls games in general changed the way I played games. But if Dark Souls was my awakening to difficulty and game mechanics, then From Software's Bloodborne on PS4 is the game that showed me how to perfect a gameplay style. Somehow, FromSoft was able to take the Dark Souls formula, which I had gotten so used to, and perfect it by just making it faster, more aggressive, more fluid, and by introducing some of the best music in a video game I've ever played. The simple removal of shields and replacing them with guns that you can either parry with or just deal damage with instantly changed how you play. The addition of small things like a quick step dodge rather than being restricted to only a roll, the rally system where if you get hit you can regain some of the health back, every weapon having a secondary form that can be comboed through, even the lack of equipment weight requirements, all combines to create an amazing gameplay experience from start to finish, which feels fair, balanced, fun, and makes you feel amazing when you finally get through that one boss or area you were stuck on. After my first playthrough, I instantly played it 3 more times that same year, so the replay factor is definitely there too. While I still have an issue with the way these games present their stories, Bloodborne does it the best out of the Soulsborne games. You still need to dig, yes, but it hints things at you in a way that I think Dark Souls doesn't quite, by making entire areas and even boss arenas hints at the story that you can pretty much piece together pretty easily if you just go read through some of the items that you get in those areas. That Lovecraftian style isn't usually something I enjoy, but something about Bloodborne just worked for me. Bloodborne's definitely a game that deserves its spot at number 3 for me, and I just never get tired of playing this game. Trying the trick weapons, fighting the bosses to get better, which this game probably has the most quality bosses out of any FromSoft game I've played so far, and even just walking around the world and finding new little details hidden about. It's an amazing experience, and I think it's truly From Software's masterpiece so far. Now I'm just waiting for a 60 FPS upgrade or remake on either PC or PS5.
Number 2.
I wouldn't call myself a big Final Fantasy fan. I've played a few here and there, and enjoyed them, but I always more so respected them for what they were, rather than for what I've got from them personally. I'm also not the biggest fan of traditional JRPGs in general. I'm coming around to them as time goes on, but for the most part, I usually prefer action RPGs to traditional turn-based JRPGs. So when I found out that Final Fantasy VII was getting a remake, and it was going to be in a gameplay style that I preferred, I started to gain interest. I went ahead and played the original Final Fantasy VII when it came out on the Nintendo Switch, and enjoyed it, even if it's a little rough around the edges given its age. I thought the materia system was neat. I thought the characters were charming, if a bit over the top and cartoonish, and I loved the setting and music. But since I like the nostalgia a lot of people had for the game, I wouldn't say it was a big awakening or enlightening experience for me. However, Final Fantasy VII Remake for PS4 did give me that enlightening experience that I feel like many people had with the original when they were kids. Something about this game just clicked for me in ways I did not expect, and that still blows my mind to this day. To have a game so hyped up by its original fans, to have such a long wait for it, and to finally see it come out and be a home run winner is something that seems so uncommon. I had apprehensions going in, mostly concerning how the game would feel given it would only be the Midgar portion of the original game being remade, which in the original is only about 5 to 10 hours depending on your pace, with the rest of the game being much larger and longer as it opens up into an open world type map. I was concerned that these characters wouldn't feel fleshed out enough, given the major story moments from the original wouldn't be happening. But I'm happy to say, this game puts those fears to rest. The decision to break Midgar off into its own game was brilliant. It allowed Square Enix to really focus in on the world and characters in a way the original just didn't. Characters like Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse were but little side characters in the original, mostly one note without much depth and are forgotten about after Midgar. But in Final Fantasy VII Remake, they feel like fully fleshed out characters. You get to interact with them much more, see where they live, what they enjoy, even what some of their backstories are. You get intimately acquainted with what were originally just some side characters.
Hey there, Bigums, Reggie, Smalls. Brought a new friend to meet you. These little guys are on guard duty today.
They even added in new characters that weren't present in the original game, which only served to enhance the experience. The story here feels full. I'm sure many, like me, feared the game would feel like only a part of an experience, but I want to assure everyone that this does feel like a full game by itself. It's fleshed out like a full game, feels like a full game, and completes story arcs like a full game. I haven't even touched on the gameplay yet, which is probably my second favorite combat system in any video game ever, second only to Neo, which unfortunately didn't make the list. The way Square Enix was able to combine an action RPG's combat mechanics with that of a slow-paced, turn-based JRPG blows my mind. The game is not only just about learning enemy patterns and relying on reflexes, but it asks you to think. It allows you to switch between characters so that you can use them at different points in the fight for max effectiveness. You can slow down time to look through your menus and command your non-player controlled characters to do proper moves as well. The combat always has something going on. There's never a moment in combat where you aren't thinking of the next best move. There's always something on your mind in the middle of any combat scenario. And the ingenious way that they just combined an action RPG, running around, hitting things, blocking, dodging, with slowing down time and giving commands to your companions that you can then also take control of like you would in the original game, and combining those two together was just genius. I haven't even touched on the graphics or the music, which are stellar in every way possible. Except Doors. Doors have a problem. Or the little bits and pieces you get here and there during the story, which will allude to future events that will happen in future games. Or the fact that the ending throws such a wild curveball at you that you spend the next week after finishing the game just thinking about what it all means. But that will ultimately be Final Fantasy VII Remake's reason for not being my number one game of all time. Not only does it lack the massive nostalgia that I have for my number one choice, but the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake poses a bit too many questions and not nearly enough answers. I don't mind that there's plenty of questions. In fact, I very much enjoy the ending and appreciate that it leaves us with questions which a traditional remake like this probably wouldn't. You would just assume, oh, it's going to play out exactly how the original story did with just some little minor changes here and there. But no, Remake's doing something very interesting. And I appreciate that. But I have apprehension. I feel like, based on the ending, they might be going a little too crazy and maybe a little too distant from the original that it's going to feel alien to me. But time will tell with that. For now, what I can say is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is second to only one game when it comes to the experience I had with it, which gives it its number 2 spot on my list.
Number 1.
My favorite game of all time is also the best game in my favorite franchise of all time. It's the only franchise I know of that can simultaneously make me look at it and say,
some people are so dumb,
while also saying,
damn, damn, damn.
So good.
It's a series I play at least one of the games every year, if not more. I've put countless of hours into it, and I've even strengthened bonds of friendship over playing it, which kind of fits with the theme of the games. My favorite game of all time is Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. It's a silly concept. Final Fantasy mixed with Disney, but also it has its own characters and storyline. Donald Duck's a wizard? Goofy's a knight? Mickey Mouse is a king? What is happening? Yet somehow, someway, Tetsuya Nomura, the director of the series, the madman that he is, was able to create a franchise that has grown with me more than any other. Despite how silly the concept is, and admittedly how silly the story can be sometimes, with cheesy writing and insane continuity that even had to go as far as to explain why Mickey Mouse, at the end of the first game, was shirtless in one scene that they explained years later in a completely different game near the release of Kingdom Hearts 3. It's... who does that? Nobody needed to know why Mickey Mouse had no shirt on. It was fine. What? It's really dumb. But it makes me go...
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
If no one told you yet, you're a genius and an artist.
Add on to that, a genuine attachment I've gained with these characters over the years. Man, I've never thought I'd care so much about Donald Duck and Goofy before, let alone care about this anime boy hanging around them named Sora, or his anime friends Riku and Kairi. But I do, and I'm still amazed by that. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix in particular sticks out as my favorite of the series though. It by far has the best combat out of any game in the series, and one of my favorite combat systems in gaming. Everything feels fluid, everything feels responsive, every move and attack has a reasoning behind it and can be understood to improve play. A lot of people who play these games say it's just mash X to win, but I vehemently disagree. Sure, that's the case if you play on lower difficulties, but if you crank it up to proud or critical as I do, you're forced to actually learn the mechanics and eventually you realize that there's a lot more to it than just mashing X. Whether it's comboing magic into your basic attacks, comboing your basic attacks into magic, all while knowing exactly when finishers will happen, or if it's being able to add or remove extra hits to your combos and extra finishers in the abilities menu, or even integrating all of the abilities that each Keyblade inherently has into your combat, it shows there's a lot more depth to combat than it first seems on the surface. And I haven't even mentioned the revenge value system, drive forms, or the mechanics behind anti-form. Trust me, if you play on critical and try to take on some of the harder bosses in the base game, or the crazy difficult data fights in the post game, or lingering will, you'll want to learn everything there is to know about the combat system if you hope to achieve victory. Another unique thing about the combat system in Kingdom Hearts 2 that's unlike a lot of action RPGs or action games in general is that it encourages air combat, and it does it very well. The game wants you in the sky, juggling enemies, blocking mid-flight, casting magic mid-combo while in the sky. It makes you feel amazing when Sora is just floating in mid-air as he's doing combos and blocking and doing all the things you need to do. Add on to all this, the combat's also super flashy and just looks really cool. While not the best of all time, it's still a great combat system for me that I never get tired of playing. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix's story is one that, even though it's hokey and silly, it delivers a really masterful blend of subtle hints, questions, answers, and emotional impact moments that hit me in big ways. The fact that you start out this game as a new character named Roxas, who we've never really met before this game, and you have to play through a very long tutorial section of the game before even being able to play as Sora, is something that, while many people got bored of, I thought was genius. The game does a few things with this. For one, it sets up Roxas as a character who will become a very important character in this game and beyond. It sets up the world of Twilight Town and a bunch of different little bits that will become important to Sora's story later on as well. Number two, it shows us what life is like in worlds outside of Sora's interference. Roxas, in this instance, is just a kid trying to save up money to go on one last summer vacation with his friends, and so you do menial chores like delivering mail, or juggling, I guess. We get to see what people of these worlds actually do when Sora isn't showing up and beating up some anime guy or fighting some Heartless. And number three, from a gameplay perspective, it shows you how much stronger Sora is now. Roxas is very slow and clunky in this section. He doesn't really know what he's doing with weapons, nor is he good with a Keyblade. He's just a normal kid in this section as far as he knows, and the game really makes you feel that. Then once you get Sora as your playable character, he's instantly faster, more agile, and can juggle in the air more effectively. You feel the experience and skill that someone who's handled a Keyblade for as long as Sora has would have. And that's just one way in which this game delivers subtle ideas and feelings to the player as you experience the story and piece things together. There are some genuinely tear-jerking moments, especially involving the aforementioned Roxas. The organization is a fun cast of characters to antagonize Sora and the gang. The ending, while still feeling like there's probably more to come, still feels like a nice bit of closure. We still have lingering questions by the end, but if the series had ended right there, I don't think many people would have felt extremely unfulfilled. It's just a nice ending to leave off on. I'm glad they didn't end it there, but it just shows how complete this game really feels as an experience. I still have so much to say about this game and why I love it, but I'm not without sense. I know it's not a perfect game. For instance, level design in this game is pretty basic. Kingdom Hearts 1 had these maze-like levels with some rudimentary platforming that never quite felt right. But Kingdom Hearts 2 just got rid of everything and just made very flat, basic levels without much going on at all. Also, some of the minigames can be huge hassles, like the Atlantico rhythm games, which don't even feel like they're in rhythm most of the time. But no game is perfect. No game on this list is perfect. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix definitely is not perfect. But just so happens to be the game I have the most fun with, the most emotional connection to, and the most passion for. It has impacted my life more than any of the other games on this list as well, which is why it earns its spot clearly at the top of my #1 favorite games of all time. So that's my list. What are your favorite games of all time? Let me know that in the comments below. I'm sure there will be a ton of different answers, but I would like to hear your reasons why. Why did you put a game at number 5 versus number 1? Why did you put it at 10? This channel is all about putting my feelings into words, so I would love to see you do the same. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.